War always hits hard for everyone. Basically nothing is gained. Lives of thousands of soldiers are lost, and the integrity of their family along with them. There have been 2 world wars in total, and the damage it has caused still persists. So for any war, weapons are something that are prerequisite. They are an inevitable part of it. And in today's video, we are going to see some of the weirdest military weapons used in World War I. Guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to smash that subscribe button on your way in. Well, on the way there, don't forget to hit the bell icon too. So most of you must be similar with the weapons that are being used in the contemporary world. People are used to playing games which are associated with shooting and the usage of these weapons, and they tend to enjoy it very much. Well, there are certain weird weapons that were used during World War I. Let us look upon a few of them. The first among them is the gauntlet dagger. Well, this is also known by the name of the punching dagger. This basically is a glove which has a coarse blade. The glove is worn on the soldier's arm and is used in close combat in the war. And along with it, the dagger has a protective gauntlet, which is made of a light steel sheet. There is a crossbar inside the gauntlet. To hold on to it, it helps the bearer to have a tight grip on the dagger. There were hooks on either side, which resembled that the dagger was laced in the bearer's forearm. Its design was similar to that of the Indian para, or gauntlet sword. Next one is a beast of that time, the Tsar tank. Is something that really scared the soldiers at that time. The Tsar tank, or Lebedanko tank, was developed by the Russians in 1914. Unfortunately, it was cancelled in 1915 after several tests, which revealed that the armored vehicle could be damaged by fire and was insufficiently powered. The people behind this innovation are Nikolai Lebedanko, Nikolai Yegorovich Zhukovsky, Boris Tashkin, and Alexander Mikulin, with a mass of about 60 tons and a length of 18 meter and a width of 12 meter. It was quite enormous. Cannon and machine gun was the main armament of this weapon. Now guys, if you ask me the difference between this and a modern tank, it's very fundamental. The Tsar tank did not use caterpillar tracks, instead it used a tricycle design, with 2 front wheels of about 9 meter diameter and the 3rd rear wheel of about 1.5 meter diameter. The 240 horsepower Maybach engine powers all the 3 wheels. Upper cannon could reach a height of 26 feet. If you are wondering about the speed which the tank could move, it's about 10 miles per hour. Lebedanko developed a wooden model of this military car with an engine based on a gramophone spring and was presented before Nicholas II. He was fascinated by the idea and immediately granted funds for it. The wheels were purposefully designed to move through the rugged path. However, the inappropriate weight distribution was the biggest flaw of the armored vehicle. You must have seen several movies in which the soldiers were all geared up with their weapons and their armors. It really looks amazing, right? Even though the face mask is not a weapon as such, its importance is not mere. This was worn by the British tank crew during the war. The mask was made up of leather and metal chains. Since they were worn by soldiers that were in the tank crew, the main objective it served was to protect the wearer's face and eyes from the hot metal pieces that were ricocheting inside the tank because of the impact that the bullets created on the exterior of the tank. It proved to be very useful during that time for the tank crews. The next one on the list sure looks deadly, but may not be so. The Kassebash, also referred to as the walking stick, was used back in the First World War. It was registered and described back in 1917 and was also used by the French in their second Battle of Champagne. It looks scary, right? With the weapon being made from gnarled pieces of wood, fitted with iron spikes and weighed with lead. With the leather grip, it is too long to be used as a club. It was intended to be used as a walking stick, hence the alternative name was as such. Ever heard of a homemade weapon? That sounds a bit interesting. At the time of World War I, the need for weapons became so much that people started searching for weapons in every nook and corner. They only had a single objective: to make something out of anything, they have to destroy their enemy. Trench raiding clubs were one of such innovations. It was mainly used to do discreet killing of the enemies. A sharp metal capable of even piercing through the enemy was fixed at the end. They thought of every way possible to serve out the maximum harm to the enemy. Maces were one among the favorite weapons of the Bosnian soldiers in the Austro-Hungarian army. Leather strap or cord at the end made it possible for the user to wrap it around the wrist. The next one on the list is the flechette. also known by the name of German flechette. It was built like a one-piece cylindrical aerial dart, which had a pointed tip and with 4 grooved fins in its shaft. The weapon was originally built by the Italians in the year 1911 to 1912, even though the French were the ones who were first in the world to use it in the First World War. But later the British and Germans also started using them. Now the basic question that comes into your mind is, how did they use it? Well, they were dropped from aeroplanes or airships in large numbers in canisters, with each of them holding between 20 to 250 darts. Well, the idea of using darts from such a height was that falling from such great heights would help them achieve adequate momentum, so it would pierce into the heads or bodies of the enemies. The canister that holded these darts were attached to the aircraft below the fuselage. A wire was associated with it, which was pulled to open the canisters, and then came out the darts with the speed of bullets and made an impact similar to them. It is quite obvious that it's important for a soldier to hold his cover. Well, with soldiers with rifles, to hold covers becomes like the most important part, or else they are recognized by enemy soldiers. Their fates were obviously written off at that moment, right? Sure it is. So what could they have done? They discovered the periscope rifle, which helped the soldiers to sight the enemy while they hid well and held their cover. The weapon was independently discovered by many during the period of World War, and it's not clear who discovered it first. Well, after rifles, the periscope was used widely in machine guns and pistols during warfare. The next one in the weird weapon list is the anti-gas fan. Anti-gas fan is another weird weapon used at the time of World War I. As the name implies, it looks exactly like a fan. It is made up of a waterproof canvas along with a wooden handle. The center is semi-rigid, and the flaps in the end and the sides are loose. The length of the fan is 89 centimeters and weighs less than 1 pound. The most remarkable feature is that it could be folded. Presence of a hinge in the back is a feature which helps to be flexible. It was invented by Hertha Ayrton. When the German army introduced the poison gas, the British army was determined to produce an even more poisonous weapon. The details of the weapon were shown before the Royal Society in 1919. Poisonous gas is pushed out towards the enemy at a massive velocity. The waterproof canvas made it possible to use it in any weather. The framework provided a suitable support for the canvas. The first model of Ayrton's anti-gas fan was developed in May 1915, and she tested it in the backyard of her friend's garden. In this video, you've already seen the anti-gas fan. Next, you're going to see about the anti-gas helmet. What could protect you from harmful gases? A mask or a helmet? Anti-gas helmet was produced with the sole purpose of providing protection against deadly gases. The hypo helmet, initially used for the same purpose, became insufficient to combat the lethal gases. Something else was required to combat these deadly gases. Neutralization of these gases was one such method. Chemicals were used for this purpose. Helmet soaked in sodium phenate was used by soldiers. This was efficient in neutralizing these toxic gases. These helmets came into use from mid-November 1915. It was made from multi-layered linen and was basically glass Google set on a hood. They also devised ways to deal with anything that reduced its effectiveness. Like carbon dioxide when exhaled reduces the ability of the P helmet to deal with the hydrogen cyanide. So carbon dioxide was removed by a tube-shaped valve. Excess concentration of phosgene would actually render it less useful. As a next step, pH helmets were introduced in 1916. Sodium phenate, hexamine solutions were used to make pH helmets. They came into use in July 1916. It is popularly known as razzle-dazzle in the US, or dazzle painting. It was another class of weapons used at the time of World War I. Though not as much as in the time of World War I, it was also used during World War II. It is something that you have seldom heard before. It was a family of ship camouflage. The big brains putting forward this idea was British marine artist Norman Wilkinson. In order to camouflage, it was painted with contrasting colors. We know that camouflage is something that is used to hide, to protect yourself from enemies. Well, the dazzle camouflage used a different strategy. It doesn't try to hide itself. It rather makes it challenging to approximate a target's range, speed, and direction. Basically, it tries to delude the enemy. The geometric patterns and contrasting colors were able to confuse the enemies and make it difficult to aim for the ship. Counter shading is another similar technique used to hoodwink the enemy. You might probably be wondering about the success of this technique. Well, it's a bit difficult to answer that. The result of the dazzle camouflage was a bit mixed. No proper evidence is available to substantiate the effectiveness of ship camouflage. It was initially used in the UK and later by the United States Navy. The American artist Abbott Henderson used used counter-shading and disruptive coloration as a method to mislead the enemies. In 1909, he also published this in the Book of Concealing Coloration in the Animal Kingdom. This idea of camouflaging submarines was brought before Churchill in February 1915. However, it faced several oppositions. The camouflage needed for the ship was different at different environmental conditions. It varied depending on the light and the hues of the ocean. Flare gun justifies its name because it discharges flares and smoke when it fires. A distress signal is produced by the flare gun. Habelleuchtpistole, model 1894, is a kind of flare gun used in World War I and World War II mainly by the Germans. It was designed in 1893 and was produced in 1894 to 1918. It had a caliber of 26.5 mm. It had a mass of 1.8 kilograms and a length of 36 centimeters. The inventors of these guns are Griffith, Fritz Langenhahn, J.G. and Schütz. It proved to be quite useful at the time of World War. The final offensive of Sinai and Palestine campaign on 19 October 1918 witnessed the destruction of a German aircraft by firing a very light into the aircraft. Grenade is something that usually proves to be dangerous in any situation. During World War I, the British and Commonwealth forces started using a new explosive device known as a jam tins. Anzacs designed and developed the jam tin, or bully beef tin, when there was a dearth of the weapons during the early period of World War I. It was in service from 1915. It is a type of hand grenade with a filling of ammonal and steel fragments. Structurally, it consisted of an inner can and an outer can. The inner can was filled with explosives and the outer can with the metal fragments. Either a friction device or a cigarette was required to ignite the fuse. The next one is the weirdest of them all, the fake trees. Fake trees were also known as the observation trees, and they were used widely during World War I. It was initially used by the French and later by the British and the Germans. The process of creating the tree was quite troublesome as you need to be careful with the details. Military weapons have revolutionized itself in every way in the modern world. With the world making huge changes in every field, military weapons have not been left behind. The new machines are deadly and more lethal than those weapons used in the past. When you look at the weapons used during World I and now, you must have understood that basically there is no comparison with modern weapons. But still, at that time, these were the lethal ones and formed the base for the weapons that we are using now. So guys, that's all for today. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video about the weird military weapons used in World War I. If you are aware of any more of such weapons, let us know down in the comments section, and don't forget to like and share the video on your way out.